This is the People of Bartlett podcast. I'm Dustin with Bartlett Local. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 14 with Robbo. Robbo's a director and writer who's making an incredible impact in our community. On this episode, we learn about who Robbo is, how he started, and what his future holds. Find your favorite cozy spot and let's find out more about Robbo. I guess I'm putting on my podcast voice.
All right, I'll put on my podcast voice too. Hey, Dustin, how are you?
Hey, how are you? All right, I've got Robbo here. Robbo Zelonky. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes,
All
you
right.
didn't put an S in. Good job, Dustin.
All right. Thanks, Robbo. So, Robbo, who are you and what do you do?
Well, I should explain Robbo because Robbo is an unusual name, but it's how I make my living. What's one of the main ways I make my living? I write children's music, and my real name's Rob Zelonky, but everybody calls me Robbo. And that's who I am on Spotify, on Apple Music. And I write music for kids and perform it around the country. And I have other jobs in the arts. I direct. I think one of the reasons you're talking to me today, lucky me, is because I direct wonderful students at Appling Middle School in Bartlett. We do a musical every year. And I've had your daughter in it in my play for the last couple of years. She's a wonderful young woman.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good job there. And so I work at Appling directing their plays. I'm also a playwright. So I've written two musicals, and one of them is published, which means that people can find it and they do it in other places and other schools. And the other one isn't published. It's my Harry Potter musical, but people do it too. They just did it at a school in Washington. They did it at a school in Springfield, Missouri, and that musical, a big part of the profits go to fight multiple sclerosis. And
That's
there's
amazing.
a story behind that too. But yeah, so that's what I do. Write musicals, write music, perform music, and also direct at Appling. Oh, and I work at a Jewish camp in California for about 4 months a year, the summer and at various times throughout the year. I run their theater program and their music program as well.
What part of California is that?
Well, you asked me what part. I'm going to make it a slightly longer answer. It's not that long, trust me. It was in Malibu for the first 25 years that I worked there, and 5 years ago we burned down. So
Oh,
now we're renting a camp site in Silmar, California, which is outside of LA about an hour, and it's different than the Malibu location. Very hot, but very fun still. It's a wonderful place. Been there for about 5 years. Hoping to move back to Malibu soon.
and you do that through the summer?
I do it every summer. Yeah, this will be my 29th or 30th summer. And they bring me out to do 1 or 2 weekends a month to do music for people who rent our camp. Again, this is a Jewish camp, so I do mostly Jewish stuff there. Sometimes survivors of cancer will rent out our camp, and that's not a it's not a Jewish event. So I'll do secular, non-religious music for those people and their kids. But most of the time, it's a Jewish institution, so I'll do mostly Jewish-leaning stuff. And over the summer, I do, like I said, that's 9 weeks with about 500 kids. Different kids each session. Some of these kids I've known for 20 years. My own son is 26 years old, and he's been there since he's been a baby with me. And now he works there. He's in charge of the counselors and training. And so anyway, I do a lot of stuff there. It's a big part of what I love doing
Okay.
and I'm lucky to do.
And your biggest tie to Bartlett is going to be Appling. Is that correct?
Yeah, my
Appling Middle?
biggest tie to Bartlett is Appling. Appling, look, I do so many, and I can just jump ahead to just say this, and I'm not trying to, I hope I don't appear disingenuous by laying it on too thick, but I love all of my jobs. I love performing my children's music. I told you before we started the interview, I've sung at the White House a few times in DC. I've had a really fun career doing the children's music. I'm lucky to be a playwright. I'm lucky to be published. I'm lucky to have my stuff done at different places. But my favorite job, and I would do it for free if I could afford it, or if I won the lottery tomorrow, I definitely would keep Appling. I love working with middle school kids because
Hmm.
they just want to learn. They're so hungry to learn, and it's my favorite job. It makes
Right.
me So happy. And you've seen it. You know I'm not making that up. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
How long have you been at Appling?
2008 was
Oh,
the first
wow.
show. Yeah, so that's about
That's
15
yeah,
years, I
15
think.
years. That is
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, I was directing a play at the synagogue out here in Memphis, a play that I wrote for a holiday called Purim, and that's P like Peter,
Hmm.
Urim like Mary, Purim. And I wrote this spoof, and I cast one of the temple members as a lead because he was quite talented. And the old vice principal, the old assistant principal at Appling was married to this gentleman who I cast. And she said, "Oh, your show is so good." And I said, "Oh, thank you." And asked her what she did. She told me she worked at Appling. And I told her that 20 years before that, before 2008, when I met her, I used to direct in Chicago at middle schools, and I hadn't done it in 15, 20 years. And I just loved it so much. I was in my young 20s when I did it. And she said, "Why don't you come to Appling and we'll try to do something?" And the rest is my personal history.
Wow.
It's been wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
How many students do you think you've taught at Appling?
So I would guess on average about 60 kids a year, 60 times 50, probably 600, 900, 1,000, something like that with
Wow.
stage crew. Yeah. Yeah. It's been wonderful.
It's amazing to me how you see those children transform from the beginning of the year to the end of the year through the theater program. They come in and they can be shy and they can be uncertain, and by the time by the time it's over, they're coming off of stage or from working the lights or whatever, and they are just full of energy. They're full of enthusiasm, and they're full of confidence.
Yeah. It's wonderful to see. When I was in eighth grade, I remember, look, I'm going to be 60 years old this year, but I still remember things really well. And I remember middle school, and I remember how it felt when I got into my first play and how it changed everything for me. How I was happy to be in school, and I was happy to be going to rehearsals afterwards, and how I felt like I was making friends and became a social person. And I see it in them. I see it. There's this young man who was in the play this year, and his father said to me he couldn't stand going to school, and now all he wants to do is get there so he can get to rehearsals after school hours. And he's, I see it all the time, and I identify with that because I remember it. It's very real, and I'm very happy and happy to be able to give that to them. And their enthusiasm gives so much to me too.
Well, that's why I wanted you on the podcast, because you're one of the people that do make our community great. To see these children change
Thank you.
and become confident and learn teamwork and learn all of these skills, they'll carry these memories and these skills for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, yeah, and they'll meet friends that they have for the rest of their lives too because of this. I'm still friends with my theater people from back in high school, and some of them are my best friends in the world. It's important, and we need to be connected to people. That's I think that's a thing that they've actually proven is a way to be happy in life, and
Yeah,
theater is an amazing tool for these young people to connect to each other.
I can agree with that.
Hmm.
You mentioned the White House. How many times have you been to the White House?
So in 1995, I started writing. I'm sorry, 91 or 92, I started writing children's music. And I started performing in I lived in LA at the time. I moved to Memphis in 2006, I think, four, maybe 2004. But in 90, I lived in California, and I was there in about 91, 92, whatever. And I was writing, and I started to get work, pursuing it, and getting costumes and props and calling places and sending my stuff in. And I started to get a pretty good reputation, which was lovely. And I sent my tape at the time. It was a cassette tape, to the White House travel office. I think, yeah, I know Bill Clinton was the president at the time, but it had nothing to do with who was the president. It's just a matter of you have to find out who does the Easter egg hunt. And they had all these acts the previous year from Disney and Nickelodeon. And I was just an independent performer. And but I thought I'd take a shot, and I sent it, and they loved it. It was so nice. They said, "Oh, this is great. We're gonna have you come out. You'll be between, there was there was a group of singers. I think they were named Sharon, Lois, and Bram. They were on Nickelodeon in the '90s, and Mr. McFeely from
Oh,
Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood did something, and I was in between them. And so I did that for in '95 at Bill Clinton's White House, and then I did it twice during the George Bush administration in 2002, 2003, which was thrilling in its own way because my daughter, who's 28 now, was 8 at the time, and I brought her along with me, and I had her sing a song, and so she can always say she sang at the White House. But it was a lot of fun, and yeah, so that's that story.
was that 3 times total at the White House?
3 times total. Yes,
Wow.
yes,
Not
yeah.
everybody can say that. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was really neat. It was really an honor. I was really happy about that. And people were so nice. The audiences were nice. I still remember some of the people I met on that trip too. On those trips. I've met a lot of wonderful people throughout the years doing this little thing called music. It's been quite great and a blessing.
Oh, you have deep roots in music and theater and performance. You have some Hollywood ties as well. Is that right?
I know what you're asking me. I know people in the business. I've met people. My own son, my youngest child, was in the Broadway tour of a musical called Billy Elliot, and
Oh
it was
yeah.
it was a Tony Award winning show, and he was amazing in it. Anyway, he just was in a play directed by Jason Alexander from Seinfeld. So, your people
Wow.
who are my age. Yeah. And so he's got many more ties than me, but I think you're probably asking me about, we used to be friends with the Olsen twins, and they used to come over for dinner, and
Wow.
they used to take care of my kids, and we would go to amusement parks together and stuff like that. But and I guess I had my fourth or fifth CD called A Kid's Life. There were some actors who I had come to see my concerts, and
Hmm.
I asked them if they would consider doing monologues on that CD. So I had, Henry Winkler and Vanna White and,
Oh wow.
stuff like that. So I knew people, but it's not like, the kids at Appling, they say, oh, you're famous. You're famous. And I'm truly not. I tell them I'm just happy because I'm doing work that I love. And that's true. If you love what you're doing, Dustin, if you love what you're doing, it's not work. It's so cliche, but I feel fortunate every day to be doing these jobs that I have, you know, or that I do. And yeah, yeah.
It shows that you love what you do. I know this because when I go to events that are not theater events, just events for the kids, Robbo is there. Robbo doesn't have a kid at Appling, and we were at an Appling event and Robbo was there. And that means so much to the kids.
Oh, I know. I thank you for saying that, and I know it means a lot to them, and that's why I show up to support them. And they're so, talk about, I don't know, they're just so kind and accepting and loving, and they want me to see what they do, and I want to see what they do, because I'm proud of them. I'm just really proud of them. And at Appling, not to get ahead of ourselves, I have a feeling you'll ask me about Appling, but it's a spectacular school for the arts. They do an amazing
Yeah, tell us about
job.
Appling. We want
Yeah,
to hear.
sure. Appling, as you know, your daughter's in choir, and their choir teacher, Mr. Mack, is he's a remarkable teacher. I've sat in on his classes and watched how he teaches, and I don't know, I can't be as eloquent about it as I want to be, but he is just so caring too, and he's so good. He knows how to get the best out of them. Angela Sanders, who does orchestra, is amazing. I'm sure there's teachers whose names I will forget to mention, but yeah. Anyway, jazz band and all that. She's an amazing teacher, and the reason I know those two the best is because they work with me to make sure that if the kids are in the play and in band or in choir, that she gives the kids back to me. So I've been working with them for years. So anyway, but these are wonderful teachers and who are so passionate, and really in awe of what they do. I'm a freelance guy. I come in after school for a couple hours, and I'm passionate too, and I love it, and it's great. But they're there 8 hours a day, and class after class after class, and they're just on top of it. And I'm sorry, you asked me. I don't mean to interrupt you, but about Appling, the principal Keisha McMickens, she cares about the arts, and she wants me to be there. I serve at her pleasure, so to speak. People say that about the president of the United States. I serve at their pleasure. Well, I serve at Dr. Mack's pleasure, but she loves the arts. She talks about it all the time. This is so good for them. It makes them so happy. We
That's right.
want you as, it's great. So we're lucky in that way.
Happy students are good students, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Makes a better school.
And this year, what was your performance?
This year we did the classic musical written by Meredith Willson. He wrote a musical called The Music Man, and it was so much fun. They were just doing it on Broadway with Hugh Jackman, who plays Wolverine. He
Yes.
just played the lead in it on Broadway. And so anyway, we did it at Appling, and I had, this wonderful cast of kids who just cared and wanted to do a good job and worked hard every day and cried when it ended. And it was a lot of fun. They did a great job.
I went in with no expectations, and I was blown away. I saw three out of, I believe, four performances
Yeah.
of The Music Man. I was blown away. The story is timeless. The characters are memorable. Uh, I enjoyed it from beginning to end. I still think about those songs. They're so
Yeah.
catchy.
Yeah, they're so catchy. They're famous, 76 trombones led the big parade. Uh, and the kids were so good, Ethan as Harold Hill, Ainsley as Marion,
Of course.
your daughter Daphne, and uh, Elizabeth playing, sharing the role of Mrs. Peru, and
Hmm.
just so many talented kids, passionate kids who want to do a good job, kids who took it seriously, kids who got over their nerves.
Yeah.
Kids. I used to talk to Daphne about it, your daughter, just how she was nervous at the beginning, and how she got past it, and just it's beautiful to watch. I mean, she's not the only one. You could say that for pretty much all of them. Heck, man, I've been in 47 plays in my life. I haven't done play in about 12 years, but I have done them a lot, and I get nervous too. That's part of the process.
Now
Uh,
I know you say that, but I know you play a role in The Boy Who Lived.
I do. Yeah, that's the musical that I wrote where a good bulk of the chair proceeds go to multiple sclerosis. Can I tell you that story
Yeah,
real quick?
please do.
Okay, sure. So I love Harry Potter. I read the books to my kids growing up, and it became a real big part of our lives. I read it in character, and they couldn't wait for me to read it, and it was just a great thing. And it started to strike me that this would be an amazing musical. So I wrote the musical. I wrote the music to it, and it's all based on the first book. It's called the music. The musical is called The Boy Who Lived. I think the CD on Spotify is called Robbo and the Wizard Rock Kids, but it's really for
Okay.
The Boy Who Lived, because I think I put out the CD before I knew I was going to put it toward a play. And I wrote J.K. Rowling's people, and she said, "Look, it's as long as you give money to MS, give a hunk of it to MS, we're okay with it." I've still got the letter. So, but I don't think they wanted me to pursue it in terms of like trying to get Warner Brothers involved. They just said, just do it for a charity thing. So, Appling all the time gives a little hunk to MS, and the reason I used the MS connection, and I say used it. It sounds so crafty, but I was really touched. My mom is still living. She's as of this recording, and she's got MS. She's had it since I've been 8 years old, multiple sclerosis, and she's been in a wheelchair for about 30, 40 years. And J.K. Rowling's mother passed away from MS, and I thought, hey, why don't I do something for MS, because it really stinks that my mom has it and has been struggling for all these years, and it's sad that this woman who created this character that my kids and I love so much had to go through that pain. And so they wrote back and said, "Yeah, just give some to MS. We're happy to hear it. Good luck."
That's
And
very
it's
cool.
yeah, it's really nice. It's really nice. And yeah, so I play Voldemort on the recording because I can. It's complicated vocally, and I can do it. So, but yeah, it's a
Yeah, I
lot of
remember
it's
that's
fun.
it's not the biggest part, of course, but it's, what would you call that? A secondary role?
I would call it a secondary role. Yeah,
Yeah.
Harry, Ron, and Hermione are definitely the big leads. And But yeah, it's fun to do it at Appling. I've tried to cast a kid in the role sometimes. We've done it a couple times at Appling, and it's really hard to find somebody who can do that part vocally because it's all over the place and they're singing 3-part harmonies
Right, because
and
that's the bad guy, right?
that's the bad guy. Yeah, it's a tough one to cast. So I play it. I much rather not play it because I love watching the plays. I just love watching them up there. They're so into everything. But I for that show I do it, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
You mentioned you have children. How many children do you have?
I have three. I have a daughter, Zoe, 28, son Elijah, a couple years younger, and Jacob's the youngest, 24.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, they all 2 out of the 3 went into the arts, which is really cool. Zoe and Jacob. Jacob's an actor in LA, and Zoe's a director and an actress in Asheville, North Carolina. Zoe's actually got a real job with benefits directing at a theater, and which is great. Beautiful, and my middle child Elijah just graduated from Georgetown with a master's degree in sports management. He loves sports, and I hate to say it, but he kind of gets it from me because you've seen my garage, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
A big
Chicago
Cubs
Cubs
fan.
shrine.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
it
right.
doesn't really fit in Memphis. A lot of my Cardinal fans let me have it, but Cardinal fan friends. But yeah, I love baseball, and I know a lot about it, maybe too much, and football too. So anyway, my middle child got interested in that, and the two on the other side, picked the arts, and bless them, they're all doing great, and they're all happy, and couldn't be prouder of them.
So I want to know, how did you end up doing theater? Where did this come
Oh,
from? How did this happen?
that's a good question. I can get speaking of my mom. You know how you're important to your child, Dustin, and your
Yeah.
wife is important to your child, and you can influence them and tell them, hey, you should try this. So in 8th grade, they had auditions for The Wiz, which is the African American black version of The Wizard of Oz. But the school was mixed race, and so we were all races. And anyway, they were doing The Wiz, and in the school district, it was my school and a couple of the other junior high and elementary schools, and it was a gigantic all district thing. And I said, oh, maybe I should do something like this. I didn't have a lot of confidence in 8th grade, and not to make
Nobody
it sound
does.
like, yeah, no, it's hard. Uh, and parents were going through stuff, and I always had this tumult in my house. This crazy stuff where we'd sleep out at hotels because one parent was going to be home and the other parent didn't want to see it. It was just nuts, and I always felt a little bit on eggshells in life. And they had this audition for The Wiz, and I said, I saw it. I told my mom I filled it out or something, told her to send it in, and then I got cold feet, and I said, I'm not going to do it. I just don't want to do it. Don't want to make the commitment. Don't want to practice. Don't want to take the time. All those things. And she said, "Nope, you're doing it." So I used to sing in Chicago. This is a little side story, but we used to sing. My mom, my sister, my dad,
Hmm.
me, we sang in Chicago for Jewish functions. Like they would have these things, and we'd sing.
Right.
We were the Zelonky family singers or whatever. We did Yiddish and Hebrew and English folk songs. So I liked singing and all that, but I decided I didn't want to do it. Didn't want to do the play, and she made me. She said, "You're going to do it because you got some talent here, and this is something that could be good for you." And it was really a wonderful piece of parenting because I ended up, I got the lead in it, but even if I didn't get the lead, I would have been, I mean, whatever the lead is, I was the whiz. But whatever I would have, I loved those kids. It didn't. The next year, I didn't get the lead. I was in the ensemble, and that was just as fun as getting the lead. Is my point. It changed everything. Changed my life. Made me happy to, just like that boy I was telling you about. Made me happy to go to school.
Right.
Made me happy to wake up in the morning. Made me happy to go to bed at night. Loved learning lines. I still remember my first big line I had to learn. Silence, you have the audacity to come here and stand in my magnificent presence. Gaze upon my beatific countenance as king. Me, the mighty wizard, to put a brain in a ragged bundle of straw. You must be kidding. I remember that. And I remembered how fun it was to memorize. And it just changed everything. And because of that, I went into theater as a kid. I mean, in college as a young
Uh-huh.
man, and then I ended up directing at a school because I remembered how much I loved doing it. And so all that stuff, that's what's mom. I got to give mom full credit for pushing me
Of course.
into it. And I got pushed. I
And
didn't go willingly, but I'm
what's her
really
name?
glad. Mom is Arlene.
Arlene.
She's
Well,
a yeah. She lives out here at the, can I say she lives at the
oh,
Jewish home?
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
She's at the Jewish home. She's a patient, but she's still hanging in, thank goodness.
Well,
And
maybe she'll hear the podcast.
oh, I'll make sure she does. We'll give her full credit. We'll give her full credit.
All right. Yeah.
And mom, you're a mother in a million. She likes when I say that, so I
Uh,
just said
that's really
it.
nice of you.
Yeah, thank you for letting me.
Where? So you went to college for theater, and then
Yes,
what made
Loyola.
you? You know, what was the difficulties you were faced getting into theater as a career?
Oh, it's a great question. I went to Loyola of Chicago. I got my BA in theater out there, and I did some theater out there. I would try out for shows, and I'd get cast and things, but it wasn't. I think I made like $20 a show sometimes, or
Oh,
I got into a local TV show called The Magic Door. So every time I did an episode of The Magic Door, I made $125.
oh, that is good.
Yeah, but it wasn't enough to pay the rent.
Was that when it started feeling like it could work? Actually, do something, make a
No,
career.
that's when I was thinking like I don't know that this can work because I'm not making enough money to survive. And but as I was doing that, as I was doing that, I'm kind of putting a timeline, smushing them all together. But basically, again, my mother was a music teacher, a Jewish music teacher in Chicago, and she brought me to one of the synagogues at which she taught music. She asked me to sing to the kids. So I sang to the kids. The rabbi there saw me and said, "Oh, you're really good with kids. They love you." And I'm like, "Oh, I just did, I don't even know what song I sang. It wasn't anything I wrote because I hadn't written at the time." But he offered me a job at another branch teaching music, another branch in Chicago.
Okay.
That led to me getting working in the Jewish field, Jewish camps. I worked in Wisconsin, went to Malibu, did all this stuff for. Uh, uh, that's led me to becoming that led me to becoming a children's songwriter. So I moved to LA. I'm trying out for commercials in LA. I'm getting some work. I'm getting cast in a few things. And it's becoming clear that I might have a career in acting a little that started to become a little more lucrative because I started getting commercials and getting close to getting big national ones. My agent told me, she says, once you become in the top two or three, you're going to start getting stuff. So I got in the top. I was second for this big NBA national commercial.
Uh huh.
I was second for a commercial for Midas, I think. I think it was Midas. Anyway, so I started, but I had 60 auditions where I got 60, where I got nothing. So I'd go out for a year and it was hard and frustrating. But meanwhile, I'm still doing Jewish music and enjoying doing the camp stuff. Uh, and somebody said to me, you should really write music for kids because you're really good with young people. So I started writing. I wrote a song called Jimmy Knuckle Sandwich about a bully. I wrote a song called Homework about homework. I wrote a song called Sticks and Stones about how words can hurt us. And I would try them out on my kids at the Hebrew school, and the kids loved them. And I realized I really think I have a skill here that I might be able to use to make a living of doing something I might enjoy very much.
Right.
And so I went into my agent. This is when I started getting stuff, where I started getting close to getting stuff. And I said, I want to give it up.
Why?
I
Why
said,
would you say that?
I really like writing children's music. I want to do children's music.
Okay.
And I did. I mean, I focused on it so much. And I did for a while, I was doing about 100 shows a year all around the country. It was fantastic. It was fun,
Okay.
and I got old and tired. But anyway, so I kind of gave up the acting for the children's music. Was that coherent?
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
it.
So
Okay, good.
what?
Yeah,
So that was the sacrifice you made. Was you kind of abandoned acting, I guess, in a sense, to do children's music.
yeah. I was tired of going to so many. Even though I was getting closer, First off, there's no guarantee. Just because my agent said that if you come in the first one or two, they're going to take you eventually. It's possible that might have been true, but the truth is, I was tired of going to all those auditions, and I really loved writing. I loved writing. And when I wrote a song called Blanket Kid about a little kid who puts on his blanket. It really could be he or she. The little kid puts on their blanket and flies. And I remember writing that song thinking, this song is really fun. And I would be at work thinking, I got to get home, get back to writing again. I just loved writing, and I loved performing it and buying the
Right.
costume pieces and bringing kids up to volunteer. And it became something that it just filled me with so much joy, as opposed to the acting audition process that I
Hmm.
just. So I did act still. I did community theater and stuff like that, but I stopped the professional stuff and just focused on the music for a long time, 15, 20 years.
And all of this comes together in a theater at Appling,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. So it basically all those things, my mom pushing me into the whiz when I was in eighth grade, her bringing me to the synagogue, and that leading to the camps, which led to me writing children's music. And doing the whiz in eighth grade that I was in eighth grade, and making that make me do directing, and having that push me into directing in Chicago. All those things just merged into me doing what I do now, which is basically I still do concerts, much fewer of them, because traveling is just I don't like it as much. But doing the travel, still being a playwright, and working at Appling, I'm not sure if I said this to you during this interview or as we were talking, getting set up. So forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but Appling is my favorite job. And I did say it during this interview. I love everything that I do, but I mean, when I walk into rehearsal, my favorite moment is when they look at me. They're like, "Bravo, let's go, let's go!" And they're just it's what it's like being. It's like heaven on earth. It's like if 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 somebody came to me and said, you want to be in heaven, I'd say as long as it can be like directing at Appling,
Yeah.
yeah, that's heaven to me. It's indescribable. But people understand. I know there are people who are listening to this who have found things in life, and sometimes it's not easy. I know that too. But it's that thing when you find something in life that just fills you up in a way that nothing else does. And
Right.
yeah, that's what Appling is.
I know you bring a lot of enthusiasm, and it shows in the children. It really does. It's
Thank you.
incredible.
Yeah, they're great.
So
Great.
what's next for you? I know you're traveling to California this summer.
Yeah, I'm going to do what I've done for 30 years, which is music at the Jewish camp. And we do a play. I do 3 plays a summer. So, and I get about 50, 60 kids in the show, and each session. So I get about 150 through the course of the summer. And that's fun. That's what's next for me in terms of job, pays bills,
Right.
enjoyable, super enjoyable. But
And
the other thing is I've written like, for example, I'm always doing something in the arts. I'm always dabbling. I'm writing something. I have a new musical idea, but I wrote a book, a young adult fiction book,
oh,
and who knows where that could lead? It could lead. The odds are, I'll be honest with you. Some people say, "Oh, you got to be optimistic." I'm pretty much a realist. The odds are it'll lead nowhere, except for But I enjoyed the experience of writing the book. I finished it. I've got a novel, and I did get an agent who really liked it, and who's been presenting it to publishing houses, and I've gotten 6 rejections. Maybe like J.K. Rowling got 27 rejections, but maybe it'll never get picked up. You never know. I love it for just the work. I love creating stuff. And if it turns into money, cool. And if it doesn't, it's okay because I got to create and get close to characters who didn't exist until they came out of my brain. And so I just like the whole process. So what's next for me is just continuing to create. And
mhm.
and I would hope for something to maybe can make a little money. There's nothing wrong with that. But if not, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing and being happy.
That is the mark of a true professional. Someone who is not chasing the outcomes, but chasing the work itself.
Yes. It's funny you say, I was watching a TV show recently and somebody was talking about how the process is more important than the result.
That's right.
And it's, I, I mean, the result's important, in certain ways it brings certain things, but the process is amazing. Look, let's like directing a play at Appling. That whole process, that 8-10 weeks leading up to the result, that 8-10 weeks is the best. The result's nice, but that 8-10 weeks is incredible to see all those connections form. So yeah, well said, Dustin.
And what are you doing at Appling next?
Next year, so every year, every few years, we do a play that I wrote because it saves money on the rights, and because I don't charge them for that. And so this year we're doing, or next year I should say, we're doing Suddenly Someone, and Suddenly Someone's my play that got published by Brooklyn Publishing, which is a legit theater company, and people like somebody just bought the script of Suddenly Someone at a
Okay.
school in Budapest, Hungary.
Wow.
They have an English speaking school, and they're doing Suddenly Someone, which is a thrill for me, you know. But anyway, but we're doing Suddenly Someone. It's about a little boy named Michael Hope who gets bullied in school and he has a hard time with it, and he ends up being pushed into singing at the school talent show, and he goes viral, and he becomes suddenly someone, and it's
Oh,
about how it changes his life, and how the world changes around him, and he just wants to kind of stay the same. I think it's a beautiful story. It's funny, it's moving, it's sad, but it's certainly ultimately, spoiler alert, it ends happy, you know. And it's and the kids love it. They just did it at a theater in Missouri, and the kids were saying this is, and these kids are theater kids, and they do all sorts of shows, and they said this is the show that touched our hearts more than any other one. It doesn't mean
that's
that
incredible.
it's the best, but I'm saying that's what they were saying, and I see how happy it made them, and it makes me happy. So yeah, we're doing that at Appling next year.
You think that that'll be around April when that's
I
for
think it'll be
performance?
around mid-April.
Okay.
Absolutely. You know, I hope people look for it. You're more than welcome to come.
Yeah, absolutely.
April of 2024. Is that okay to say, to
Yeah,
put a date on?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
All right, Robbo. Well, we're going to move into what we call the quick fire questions. I've got some
all right.
questions I want to ask you, just to kind of get some more insight, maybe who you are, and maybe find out some surprises we don't know about you. Are
Okay.
you ready for those?
Yes,
All
I
right.
am ready.
So, if you were not in your current role, what would you do?
I would like to be a. If I wasn't in my, what would I like to do, or what would I do?
Sure.
Okay, what I'd like to do is be a major league pitcher, because you know how much I love baseball.
Wow. That's a
uh,
cool job.
yeah,
Okay.
I mean that's what I'd like to. That's to be the dream job, major league pitcher.
All right. Next question. What is the perfect, most ideal age to be?
The most ideal age to be is, I don't know, whatever age you're at, because you got to
Ah,
enjoy life wherever you
great
are.
answer. I love that.
Okay, yeah,
What's the first thing you grab in the morning?
my computer.
Okay. What's your favorite Halloween costume?
My favorite Halloween costume. My favorite one that I ever wore was Underdog, which is a
Oh,
superhero from the
yeah.
'60s. Yeah, you've seen my tattoo, so I love Underdog.
That leads into our next question. What TV series do you enjoy?
My favorite TV series of all time is probably Haiku, which is a anime about volleyball. It's so well written, so well put together, but I don't know. I love that one. And
Okay.
Breaking Bad.
Oh, yeah. Everybody
Yeah,
loves Baking Bad.
love Breaking Bad. Yeah.
Um, what's your biggest regret?
Um, that's a tough one.
Yes,
You
it
might have
is.
to edit it together because I have to think. My biggest regret is probably, I don't know. I've gone for everything that I've wanted to go for, and even if things didn't work out, it was okay.
And
You
if
know, I wish, I
maybe
don't
you
know.
don't have regrets, and that's
I
okay too.
may, yeah, I know, but that sounds so cheap. Like it's almost narcissistic. Well, I have no regrets in life. I mean, there's things I wish I would have done better. I wish I would have handled some interpersonal relationships
Hmm.
better. Things like that, you know.
Okay.
Uh,
I think
Absolutely,
I
you
think that's
know.
a good enough answer.
Okay, cool.
Who would play you in the movie of your life?
Oh, Brad Pitt, because looks.
Right, of course.
No, no, I'll tell you the truth. I just told you my son Jacob was with Jason Alexander, and
Hmm.
he did
Right.
direct him. And people always tell me I look like Costanza from Seinfeld. So perhaps my son could get Jason Alexander to play me in
Okay,
the Robbo story.
that's funny.
Yeah.
Um, What do you hope people notice about you?
That I'm 6'3", even though I'm 5'5". I always want, there's a little thing in me where I just want people to know. You notice it. It's that thing where you'll say to me, "You care so much. You show up to things." I like that people notice that. It's not that I hope people do mention it, but that means the most to me. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's an amazing
Yeah,
answer. And
yeah.
it's amazing
Thank you.
quality to have.
Thank you.
Next question. Is it okay to sleep with socks on?
It's okay. I don't, but it's okay.
All
Whatever
right.
makes people happy.
Um,
Do you
and
sleep with socks on, Dustin?
no, I do not.
Okay, so you can't ask that question anymore. I've just nixed it from your
Okay.
repertoire.
Hold on. Let me make a note of that. Let me make a note of that. This is a good question. My daughter picked all these questions. So,
Oh, way to go, Daphne.
high school, awesome or terrible?
Awesome. I'm going to extend that just a little bit.
Sure.
Look, I told you my parents, and we had a very tumultuous time. There were many step parents and lots of too much drama. Theater saved me. It made high school awesome. It was awesome.
That's a
So you just
fantastic
got to
answer.
find things. Yeah, you got to find what you love. And even if your life is really crazy at home, you could still live a really good life.
Right.
Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
Where would you go if you were invisible?
If I were invisible, I wouldn't mind sitting in the White House and seeing how they plan policy. That
Okay.
might kind of be
All
fun.
right.
Yeah.
Next question. Netflix or Hulu?
Netflix because the interface is easier.
Okay. What working with kids? I know this is going to be a good question. What trends do you just not understand?
What trends do I not understand? I had trouble understanding pronouns,
Okay.
and a lot they want to be called by certain pronouns, and I didn't quite get that, and now I don't even think about it. So that was a thing that I had trouble understanding, and now I have no trouble understanding. Um, uh, Sometimes music, if it's not the 70s and the Allman Brothers or Led Zeppelin or the
Right.
Stones, and I'm like, what are you listening to? So, but no, not what I love about working at the school is I really kind of feel young in my head. Like I pretty much feel like I don't get, I'm not older than I should be. Yeah, I don't know how to
Okay.
say that, but yeah.
And our final quick fire question is what is your favorite or most interesting thing that you own?
Oh, my son Jacob put his handprints in something once for Father's Day, and he's the,
Right.
the actor I told you about. I love them all so much, but I have this little thing with his handprints in it, and to Daddy, Happy Father's Day, whatever. And I just love that thing. If it ever breaks, I'll be very, I'll be very sad.
How old was he
'Cause,
when he made that?
um, 22. No, I'm just kidding. He
That,
was he was I think 4. I just love it so
yeah.
much. It makes me
Yeah.
happy every time I see it. I have a few things like that from the kids
Yeah.
my children that I love. So yeah, things like that.
All right. So that's going to be it, Robbo. Thanks for coming out. Do you have any questions or comments for the show?
I just want to tell you, you did a great job. I
Well,
appreciate
thank
all
you.
your prep, and you're very good at this. And I hope that you get many, many listeners, not just to this show, but to everything that you do. I had a really nice
Thank
time.
you very
Thank you.
much. Now, and you're going to be at Appling. Your performance will be around April next
Yeah,
year.
the kids will be performing April of next year. We start auditions in December this year or January of next year. I might do a workshop, and yeah, the show goes up in April. And I'm performing. Let's see. Well, nobody's out in LA, so let's skip that. I have a concert July 21st in LA, but that doesn't matter.
Okay.
But yeah, Appling is next April. So thanks for asking.
All right, Robbo. Well, I appreciate everything. Thanks for coming on the show. You're back for our season 2 kickoff, and this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate everything.
I appreciate it too. Thank you, Dustin.
Thank you.